This is Defub 21, and for your pleasure, I have just watched the fourth episode of season 3 of Star Trek Picard twice, so I could get as good a review to you as possible. This is this episode is almost, I think it's 57 minutes long, so it's almost an hour long, yet it feels, give or take, about half as long as the two previous episodes. The two previous episodes for me dragged quite a bit. I don't know if it was the writing, maybe the combined with the directing. They just didn't, again, sticking in the same physical location, the nebula, for two episodes back to back, kind of arguing over what to do. Plus, obviously, the stuff that was going on between Beverly Crusher and Picard, vis-a-vis the surprise adult son. It just got it for me. It just got real boring, real quick, and it didn't hold my attention for the length of those two episodes. But again, this episode just feels so much faster. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's like a fast episode per se. It just went much more quickly than the previous two, and I think it was a mistake of I think it's on Paramount Plus. It was a mistake of Paramount Plus to release the first three episodes weekly. They should have released them all in one go in one week, and then the next episode for the second week the show is on air, as it were, would be this one, because it's a much stronger episode than 2 and 3 and a better episode than 1. It's The writing is good, the dialogue is good. Jonathan Frakes is on point as Riker. The kind of scene at the end of episode 3 where he basically says to Picard, bugger off, you've gotten us all killed. That's almost pretty much immediately kind of countermanded by the opening scene of this episode, and I thought it felt out of place in the last one. There's a great little chat in the opening scene of this episode between Riker and Picard that kind of sets that right, but it was kind of almost like it still feels from the previous episode weird to me, and I don't really understand why it should have been in there, or at least written in the way it was. Apart from that, there's no Raffi and Worf this episode, which maybe also helps it if you consider Raffi to be kind of the a weak point in the show, and certainly one of the main reminders of the first two seasons, which were, let's be honest here, again, I only watched the first one. It was so bad I didn't bother watching season 2, but I hear that was catastrophically bad as well. But again, we've got a different showrunner in charge now, a different writing team. And in this episode, it really, really shows. I mean, it really does. It's a much better episode than 2 and 3, better than 1, and it's probably the single best episode of Star Trek that we have seen in quite some time. Again, because of both, in my view, the kind of the decline of the original run of the original run of post Next Gen shows that started with Voyager and then Star Trek Enterprise. And then, of course, the most recent Star Trek, again, the first two seasons of Picard, and Star Trek Discovery, which has now been cancelled. So it's only going to have a 5-season run, a surprisingly long one considering how bad that show was. That is, this is, again, I haven't watched Strange New Worlds, so I can't really comment on that overall. But this is a much, much stronger episode of Star Trek than we've seen in quite some time. It's, again, the special effects, the CGI sequences are all are good, but you would expect that of modern kind of big budget streaming shows. But it's just really, really well done. There's an incident of swearing by one of the characters or two of the characters actually, that I would wouldn't be quite as out of place and kind of take you out of it as it would have been in previous Star Trek, because it's not really swearing. It's not something they do. It's not something they do in Star Trek. It's a utopia. There's no swearing in Utopia. But apart from that, I have come to the conclusion that the set on the ship of the Titan is too dark. They've gone from one reaction, it being, in Next Gen and Voyager being too kind of quote unquote beige, to being too kind of darky sci-fi on this show. Then they need to, I would go with a kind of a brighter bridge. Not, again, as I said, it is too dark. But outside of that, that's an issue that'll probably continue on for the rest of the show, or the rest of the season. But you can't really do anything about that at this stage. But the bridge in particular is too dark. But apart from that, Frakes does a great job. Gates McFadden as Beverly Crusher does a great job. Patrick Stewart is very good in this. There's some great scenes. There's some flashbacks in time which are really good. We find out why his and Beverly's son, whose name I have completely forgotten, never got into contact with Picard when he reached adulthood and found out who Picard was, or who his father was. And it's all very well done. It's well put together, and it just feels so much like again, it's almost an hour long, but it feels so much quicker than the previous episodes. If you've looked at my reviews for episodes 1 and 2 of The Mandalorian, of the new season of The Mandalorian, this is kind of the season episode 2 and episode 3 of Star Trek Picard, and what has been the norm both for all 3 seasons of The Mandalorian to date, including the 2 new episodes of The Mandalorian, remains kind of in place, which is that episode 2 and 3 of Picard are too long, and the storytelling needed to be condensed a bit, while in the case of The Mandalorian, the episodes are generally too short, resulting in artificially shortened storytelling, certainly by the standards of modern streaming shows. That hurts. They don't spend enough time in a particular scene, they don't spend enough time in a particular character or particular plot point in The Mandalorian, because the episodes are just too short. But in the case of episodes 2 and 3 of Picard, it's the exact opposite. Again, the episodes are too long. They could have cut those episodes down to, say, 40 minutes, maybe 45 minutes a piece each. Let's say around 40 minutes a piece each. Condense the storytelling. And if nothing else, it wouldn't necessarily have made the episodes better per se, but they would have made them less of a drag. And so the feeling coming out of them would have been less negative than it has been for me. And this is this episode kind of personifies how to do it properly. It's almost an hour long, probably a bit longer than a typical Game of Thrones / House of the Dragon episode, but it's quick paced. Sorry about the sound in the background. There's construction work going on in my neighbor's house, and there's nothing I can do about it. It's quick paced. It doesn't feel like, again, it's almost an hour of television. The writing's good, the dialogue's good. Jonathan Frakes is doing his job real well. Stewart is doing his job real well. The actress who plays Seven of Nine, whose name I cannot remember again, please forgive me. She does her role very well. The other captain of the Titan, who has been injured in previous episode, whose name I've forgotten again, he actually comes across much better in this episode than he does in episode 2 and 3. He's a much more multifaceted character in this episode compared to the previous 2. In the previous 2 is more like a kind of to a degree kind of a stereotypical dickhead that he doesn't come across as in this episode. And it kind of, his behavior towards Seven of Nine in the 2 previous episodes should have given away that he had some sort of personal again, spoilers, with the Borg. But obviously this doesn't, it didn't click with me that was the case in the 2 previous episodes, but that is explored to at least a degree here, and he comes across as a more kind of nuanced, not one note character like he did in the 2 previous episodes. And I have seen some talk online, and maybe it might be a good idea to have another Star Trek show based around his character, maybe captaining the Titan or another ship. I don't know. Maybe that might work out. The actor playing the role did a very good job this episode. Again, I apologize. I don't know the actor's name. I don't know the name of the character. Please forgive me. But overall, this is a much better episode than 2 and 3, and one could argue that this is kind of the sweet spot between episodes 2 and 3 of Picard and episodes 1 and 2 of the current season of The Mandalorian. It's much longer than the episodes of 1 and 2 episodes of Mandalorian, and pretty much all the episodes of The Mandalorian, but allowing for the space for the storytelling and the dialogue and each character to be utilized to their full. but it's not the plodding bore fest that I found episodes 2 and 3 to be. I mean, it's maybe not necessarily there are strong parts in those two previous episodes, but there are periods of time where those things just drag, and it just kind of turns the two previous episodes into episodes 2 and 3 into a chore. Again, 40-minute running time for those two episodes could have tightened things up, in my view, quite a bit. Now, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe if you tell me if I'm wrong or you agree with me, please let me know in the comments. But that is my opinion. Best episode of Star Trek we've seen in quite some time, which is a real kind of, if you're a Trek / nerd fan in general, is a real kind of morale booster. And hopefully it is a portent of what is to come. In other words, that if it stays to this standard for the rest of the season, that'll be excellent, genuinely excellent. Hopefully now they won't kind of descend back into trying to do member berries or anything like that. Again, the fan service, whether it be Star Trek or Star Wars, is in quality new Star Trek content, quality new Star Wars content, not cameos from fan favorite characters that messes up the flow of the story and so on, or has no real relevance to the story. This is the kind of thing I want to see, and it's a much better episode than the last two. And it's not to the same degree better than the first episode, but it is better. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. Please do let me know and comment in the comments, because the more engagement I get on each video, the more chance I get of getting more views via the algorithm and so on. Again, likes help with the same thing. They help with the algorithm. And ring the bell, as they say, if you want to get notifications immediately when a new video is uploaded onto my channel. As it is, this is Defub21. Hugely improved in terms of my perspective as to how well this season of the show is going to go. Signing off. Toodaloo.